Hey everybody, welcome back to another Modern video here today. We're going to be running the Star City Games Modern Open from Syracuse, the list that Jonathan Rosum got top 4 with, and that's going to be this Jeskai Control list that you see in front of you here. Normally when we say Jeskai Control, we think Cryptic Commands, Snapcaster Mages, but lately they've been, the archetype has been moving towards cards like Spell Queller. And I will loosely call this deck Jeskai Control. And why do I say that? Because this deck also plays 2 main deck Geist Saint Traff as well as a main deck Thundermaw Hellkite. And I was actually practicing with this deck list earlier before I started recording or anything like that. And Thundermaw Hellkite actually proves to be a pretty solid clock towards the end of the game when both players have little to no cards left in hand. It just closes out the game so quickly. So you can play this control deck up until turn 7, turn 8, and then you suddenly drop a Thundermaw and you still have like 1 or 2 spells in hand, and the game ends so quickly. So when you see this Thundermaw Hellkite, don't think of it as just like this aggro card. It's just this control finisher that comes out of nowhere. And I imagine Death Shadow will probably have a bit of difficulty dealing with 5 damage off the top in some scenarios. With that said, let's talk about the deck and some of the things going on in it. So there's going to be this core of the deck here, right? It's 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Path to Exile, 4 Serum Visions. And this is kind of this core of Jeskai Control that you can never touch. Secondly, there's also 4 Snapcaster Mages. Of course, one of the best blue cards, best reasons to be a control deck, best reason to be a blue deck in Modern. And then you also have Logic Knots, Electrolyzes, Helixes. These are just good. First of all, Logic Knot's a great counterspell, both early and late game. Electrolyze gets a lot of value against X1s, X2s, draws a card, cycles. It just does a lot of things that Jeskai wants, and even though I thought it would be poorly positioned, it actually shines in a lot of cases, and in the cases where it doesn't shine, it just cycles. And then you have 3 Lightning Helixes, of course. This card is great against Burn. Definitely a good card against other aggro strategies too. A big fan of Lightning Helix. Now you come to your 4 Cryptic Command. Fantastic card. I would say this is probably a staple of Jeskai Control as well. Never go under 3 and always lean towards 4. And then you have 4 Spell Queller. Spell Queller is just an insane magic card. It lets you play both the control and aggressive role in certain matchups, and that's really important for in Modern, for the games not to go longer than they should. Because as a control deck, you try to answer everything, but there's always going to be cases where your opponent plays a threat that you can't answer, and that's kind of where this burn comes in. This 10 pieces of burn, right? It lets you win games that you normally would not be able to win. And Spell Queller helps you do that. It helps you counter spells, and most spells in Modern are 4 CMC or less. So you can counter most things, and of course it's not even counter, it's exile, so you get around uncounterability things. And then it also gets in there for damage, and lets you hold up mana in the less interactive matchups regarding your opponent's deck. So Spell Queller plays multiple roles in the deck, and I think it's incredibly important and should not be understated. And then lastly, there's 2 Geist of Saint Traff. Now this main deck Geist is not something that's usually played in the Spell Queller decks, but when I played with it, it's actually pretty good. I played a list where it was 4 Geist, 2 Spell Quellers, but 4 Spell Queller, 2 Geist might be the way to go. First of all, it's legendary. You don't want to get too many copies. At the same time, you don't always take on the aggressive role. There's going to be often times where you take on the control role as a Jeskai Geist deck, and then you sometimes get flooded on Geist, or Geist doesn't play too great on defense. Spell Queller, on the other hand, does that fantastically. So it might just be a better hedge against an open field. But we'll see how that plays out in the matches today. And then, of course, I talked about Thundermaw Hellkite. It's kind of your top end, just finisher, just smasher. Imagine like turn 5 Hellkite, turn 6 Smash Colonnade Hellkite. That's 14 damage over 2 turns by turn 6, assuming your opponent has no interaction, of course. but that's just a lot of potential damage between, you know, 1 card, 2 cards, that this deck can just burn out your opponent out of nowhere. And that's what I really like about the deck. Okay, let's talk about the sideboard a little bit. So I did change it up just a tiny bit. First of all, I wanted to have 2 spreading seas in the sideboard, just because it's one way to handle Tron. Similarly, still keeping the 2 ceremonious rejections, though. I think those are very important. Also dealing with Tron. Tron is going to be a very big deck, as we saw in SCG Syracuse. It got 1st and 2nd place. 2 Stony Silence is a slot I'm not really looking to change. I think Stony Silence is really important, both in the Infinity matchup and elsewhere. Another change I made was 2 Rest in Peace and 1 Relic. I think Rest in Peace is just, even though it's like more disruptible in a sense, like you play it and it can just get removed, whereas Relic can net you value, or you can start chipping away over time and doesn't mess with your Snapcaster mages. I think the matches where you're bringing in Rest in Peace, it's just so important to have that I don't mind that it messes up Snapcaster mage. Could be wrong, though. That might just be a bad analysis, but that's just the way I feel about Rest in Peace with Snapcaster mage decks. And there's a lot of matches where you bring in 1 Rest in Peace and not even both. So, like, yeah, I like Relic, and it's possible I should be 2-1, but in terms of Relic, 2 Relic and 1 Rest in Peace, but I don't know. I think the graveyard based matches are so bad that you really want this kind of really good card to shut them down. Here we got a Dispel, Elspeth to go bigger. Really helps against the Eldrazi Tron matchup as well. Supreme Verdict, Anger of the Gods, 2 sweepers of choice. Wear Tear, kind of just this, not catch-all, but it deals with a lot of things. You know, it helps you deal with Blood Moon, helps you deal with Affinity, Lantern. You even bring in this Eldrazi Tron, and you can deal with a Chalice, anything like that. So I'm a big fan of Wear Tear. And then Vendilion Click, I imagine, helps the combo and control matchups, because it's definitely not a card you want in an aggro matchup. And I can understand why they don't want, why Jonathan didn't main deck the card, because it can fall flat in certain matchups, especially when you're not taking an aggressive role necessarily in game 1. So that's the analysis of the deck. I think it's, you know, like from the practice matches I did, it ran very well. You know, it ran just as well as a Jeskai Queller deck. But you know, this is the deck. We're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna run it through single queues. What that means is that costs about 2 ticks to enter, or 20 play points, I believe. And so it's going to be slightly more competitive matches than just going into the tournament practice lobby. So that's what I'm going to do for you guys, instead of run through a league, because I'm still, the internet's still a little shaky and I'm not ready to commit, you know, to a whole league, but I am definitely willing to commit a couple ticks to get you some more competitive matches. So stay tuned for that coming up very soon. See you soon. Hey guys, welcome to the first match here with Jeskai Control. Looks like we won the die roll. We would love to play first. Yeah, this seems like a keep. We have turn 1 Bolt, turn 2 Helix, or Logic Knot. So yeah, this definitely feels like a keep to me. Let's see what our opponent is doing today. Scalding Tarn, huh? Okay. This could be some sort of Grixis Shadow deck. Alright, Island. Sleight of Hand. Interesting. Scalding Tarn, Sleight of Hand. Could be some sort of Delver deck. Could be Storm. Probably Storm, if I had to place any bets. Let's go ahead and get a Steam Vent out. This way we can Logic Knot next turn if we need to. Alternatively, we can just go Serum Visions and play Sacred Foundry tapped. Geist should be pretty good against Storm. We just have to be careful. And I think Cryptic Command is pretty solid too. Nope. So our opponent has free reign here to resolve something like Goblin Electromancer, something of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and let them do whatever they please here. because the Storm matchup is shaky, right? It's not the easiest. Yeah, so this is almost definitely Storm. Sure, Baral. Alright, so hopefully that was successfully baited, because now we just go bolt the Baral while they're tapped out, and now we can still keep up Logic Knot. It's far too risky to just jam Geist there. Far, far too risky, because they can just go Lord, land, go off. And, you know, oh, they didn't even need the, excuse me, they would have had the Lord already, right? So they definitely have the capability to steamroll us. Pyretic Ritual, huh? What could they do here that could lead us to losing? They could use this mana to play one of their storm creatures. They can try to go off from there. Does that get us, though? That's tough. Do we want to just counter this to avoid any shenanigans? We may want to. Yeah, I'm just... Storm has so many lines that if we wait for the action spell, we could just get blown out. So I'm definitely going to take the more conservative line here. And here we could jam Geist. It's possible, but if they made this play last turn, it could mean they can just go off from there. So the question is, do we jam Geist, or do we hold up Snap, Logic Knot, or Cryptic Command? Because getting a clock in play is important. You can't just sit back this entire matchup, but if we fall behind, we could just die. Regardless, hopefully this Scalding Tarn is enough to hold our opponent back from playing a Lord and going off. Lord, I keep saying Lord, but you know, like a Electromancer / Baral. Because here we're representing Path, we're representing Bolt. Alright, so they got their Desperate Ritual. The question is, are they going off? Because they don't have a Lord in play. Lord, I keep saying that. They don't have a Storm creature. So they could just go like gifts here. And if that's all they do, then we bought ourselves... We chose a good turn to Geist, because then we can hold up counter magic from here on out. And of course it would be nice to counter this gift, but now we can just counter the Past in Flames instead. And now we're also clocking them, and they don't have a creature in play. So definitely a decent spot to be in. And we'll see what our opponent decides to fetch up here. I imagine Past in Flames is... Oh, no Past in Flames, huh? I don't want them to have these Storm creatures. I'd rather them get these Pyretic Rituals and then counter the Past in Flames. So to put 2 cards in the graveyard, it's going to be Baral and Electromancer. And here we'll get a Hallowed Fountain, because we already have double red. It would be nice to have double white, just in case we need to go double Lightning Helix down the road, or Helix plus Path as well. Alright, now we're putting our opponent on a 3-turn clock here, potentially 2-turn with Helix and Snap Bolt, depending what our opponent does in these next few turns. Alternatively, we could counter the ritual itself here and try to out-tempo our opponent. It's definitely an avenue for victory. The issue is here if they go land Ritual. Here I could set up the kill next turn, which I kind of want to do. So I'm going to go Snap. I will target Logic Knot. And now they just need a lot of things to actually kill us here. So now we have him dead. Next turn to attack plus Helix. And the faster we end this game, the better. Now, of course, worst case scenario, they play land plus Ritual here, and we're dead. But it looks like we probably got them dead here, right? So let's go ahead and start with an attack, just in case they have something weird. They do not. And now we can just go and Helix them, and they should be dead. All right. So that's how you take down Storm game 1. Game 2, things get a bit more difficult, right? We bring in Verdict, we bring in Angers, bring in Click, bring in Dispel, and we bring in Rest in Peace. It definitely gets trickier. I like cutting Electrolyze here because it doesn't deal with Baral. This is not the match for Thundermaw Hellkite either. Cutting some number of Snap, probably correct because of Rest in Peace, and we don't want to have that non-bow. These cards are very important. Even though we're running Verdict and Anger, they're still very important. Turn 2 counterspell is important. Ways to deal with Baral is important. However, I don't think we need all 4 paths, especially because it's a pretty bad and uncomfortable way to deal with a Baral or Electromancer. These answers are much cleaner. Arguably, Electrolyze is a way to deal with Empty the Warrens, but it's just too inefficient, I think, and too costly to actually get us ahead. So this is why I think Path is going to be better in stopping an actual Storm creature. Yeah. This hand is pretty bad. We're going to have to mulligan, unfortunately. Yeah, we can't lean on a hand of just Path, so we're gonna mulligan that. And this hand, a little bit better. We got Click. We have Anger to deal with and Empty the Warrens. And I'm gonna leave a land on top because it's gonna be the second red source. All right. Okay, our opponent's gonna start with turn 1 cantrip. Let's see how they scry. And they scry to the bottom with their mulligan. Just something that's interesting to note. We'll see what our opponent. So the opponent goes bottom with their scry. Bottom. That's a good sign. Definitely a good sign for us. Here, no need to shock. If our opponent plays a Storm creature, we'll Path it. Oh, wow. Does our opponent not have a second land? Oh, geez. Oh, buddy. Alright, you're going to need to hit a second land this turn. Wow. No second land. Okay. This could just be a free game, but of course we're going to remain cautious. And getting Click out is going to be very important, as it's a way we can actually clock our opponent. Wow. So first of all, let's take a snip of their hand here. And we are not going to put any card on the bottom, because there's no single card here that really ruins our day. So our opponent's just going to have to go to discard here. Wow, that's pretty unlucky for our opponent. Turn 1 Visions, bottom with her scry off the mulligan, bottom draw card, bottom, 2 turns pass, or what? Three turns pass. That's very unlikely. With that said, we're gonna take full advantage of it because we're still not out of the woods yet, right? Like, take a look at our hand. It doesn't necessarily interact that well with what's going on here, especially if our opponent lands a Blood Moon. So if we find another fetch land, I think it's going to be important for us to... Alright, so they discarded Empty the Warrens. I think it's important to lead here on Serum Visions. Queller. Queller is great. We're going to bottom this path. Colonnade, I'm actually going to keep on top. I think it's going to be a relevant clock to closing out the game. Alright, we can take the stop off our opponent's upkeep here. There's a land. Opponent got there. Let's take a look at our opponent's hand here. So we know it completely, right? Because I want to keep applying pressure, I'm going to go ahead and Spell Queller that. And here I want to go attack. I should have the kill next turn. We'll go ahead and just cast Serum Visions here off our Snapcaster Mage. Rest in Peace. Not too great in this position, right? We don't really need it. So we'll go ahead and bottom top the Serum Visions. Play Colonnade. Yeah, and now we'll have lethal. If our opponent just goes Electromancer, we have lethal. They could keep up Echoing Truth. I don't remember if Echoing Truth is... Alright, so they don't have this Brawl anymore. I don't recall if Echoing Truth can target lands. Alright, they're going to go for the Serum Visions. We're going to let that resolve. Serum Visions does not get them out of this. I think... Oh, and our opponent just concedes. Alright, so that was match 1 versus Storm. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for another round here with Jeskai Queller. See you guys soon.